55 tips to help you say goodbye to your things. 1. Discard the preconception that you can't discard your things. There's no such thing as a person whose nature won't allow him or her to discard their things. We only think we're unable to part with our possessions. Learned helplessness is a term used in psychology that can explain what's happening here. Though we have the ability to get rid of things, we've given up trying because we've experienced a number of failures. But we're all able to part with our things. We just need to become aware of the reasons why we've been unable to do this so far. It isn't because of your nature, and therefore you're certainly not to blame. You're simply inexperienced. That's all there is to it. You aren't familiar with the habit of discarding your possessions, and you've gotten used to keeping them. I used to live in a filthy apartment, but now I live in a minimalist space. It wasn't a personality change I went through. I simply learned the techniques and developed a habit of getting rid of excess. 2. Discarding something takes skill. In the same way that you won't wake up one morning and discover that you've suddenly become fluent in French if you've never even studied it, you can't become a master at danshari or decluttering and parting overnight. I've thrown away a lot, but it's taken me more than 5 years to do this. It is possible to do it more quickly. The act of discarding things in itself does not take time. Day 1, you throw out the garbage. Day 2 is for selling your books and CDs. Day 3, you sell your electric appliances. Day 4 is for selling large pieces of furniture or taking them to the donation center. A week is actually all the time you need to reduce your possessions, no matter how much you may have. It's not the act itself, but the decision to act that takes time. In the same way that your skills in a foreign language will improve with practice, so will the act of getting rid of things. The more you do it, the less time it will take to decide, and the easier it will be to say goodbye to your things. It's actually a skill. 3. When you discard something, you gain more than you lose. Though it may seem like reducing your possessions means you're losing out on something, I think it's best to reset our minds on that point. There are more things to gain from eliminating excess than you might imagine. Time, space, freedom, and energy, for example. I'll get into more detail in Chapter 4, but let me just tell you now that the list of the things you gain is really limitless. You can't help but fixate on something that you're about to throw away because it's right in front of you. And the potential gains from this action aren't visible, so it's hard to be aware of them. But trust me, there is actually more to gain than there is to lose. Rather than thinking about the loss of everything you discard, direct your attention to the things that you'll be gaining. 4. Ask yourself why you can't part with your things. There probably aren't many people who will suddenly decide to reduce the number of possessions that they have and become a minimalist overnight. As I said earlier, the act of discarding things is a skill. It'll be hard at first to place your possessions in a trash bag or put them up for sale. There are still a lot of items that I can't get around to throwing away myself. But it isn't something to be embarrassed about, and there's no need to get rid of everything at once. I think it's important to think about why there are some things that we can't part with. Take a minute to really focus on each item you can't part with and ask yourself why. Is it because it was expensive? Is it because you feel guilty about throwing it away? Are you ashamed that you were never able to make good use of it? Do you feel bad for the person who gave it to you? Does it feel like you're throwing away a fond memory that is attached to it? Is your vanity preventing you from parting with something? Or is it just easier to leave it where it is? Don't worry if you can't discard your possessions all at once. The important thing is to ask yourself why you may be reluctant to part with some of your belongings. You might be surprised by the answers. 5. Minimizing is difficult, but it's not impossible. The Dutch philosopher Baruch de Spinoza observed that when people say something is impossible, they've already decided that they don't want to do it. Though we may have a sincere wish to part with all our excess things, our sense of comfort from owning them may be stronger. We shouldn't rationalize this comfort by saying that because some item is full of memories or it was given to us by a dear friend, that we simply can't let it go. Yes, such beautiful reasons may certainly exist, but often the key reason is that it would just be a lot of trouble to discard. We tend to prefer the path of least resistance. Discarding something requires effort, and leaving it as is would definitely be the easy choice. But if we keep putting off the work of minimizing, we'll eventually end up surrounded by too much. If you really want to live as a minimalist, you need to make that desire your top priority.